It really is great to hear the variety of projects and activities that have been delivered by the Council over the last number of years. And to tell us more about that, I'd now like to introduce David Robinson from Belfast City Council's Good Relations team. He's going to give us a flavour of some of the challenges and successes of the Council's Decade of Centenary programme over the last 10 years. Over to you, David.
Thank you, Tara, and hello, everybody. My name is David Robinson and I work in the Good Relations team in Belfast City Council, and I'm delighted to be here with you all today for this event. My task this morning is to talk a bit about our experience within Belfast City Council on how we have navigated our way through the decade of centenaries over the last 12 years. Indeed, who knew that a decade would last 12 years, but here we are. Back in 2011, our Belfast City councillors on the then Historic Centenaries Working Group had agreed to a set of principles under which all Decade of Centenaries activity would be undertaken. A list of those key events from 100 years ago that would be marked, a variety of different methods through which events could be marked, and also then a phased approach to the decade. The principles that were agreed by the Centenaries Working Group back in 17th of October 2011 were then agreed by the Strategic Policy and Resources Committee in the 21st of October 2011, and then at the November 2011 full council meeting. And they consisted of the following text. The decade in question marks a number of significant dates that have shaped the history of Northern Ireland, and therefore our own identities and cultures. The marking of these events provides the Council with an excellent opportunity to broaden our understanding of the past and our respect for the complexity of our shared history. As a shared city in the 21st century, we should be able to deal with difference in a positive and constructive manner, demonstrating openness on the basis of shared civic values within a democracy and a mature respect for cultural diversity within our heritage. Apologies. Events supported by the Council should provide opportunities to include a range of different perspectives and ideologies rather than a single viewpoint, aiming to increase understanding and appreciation of other perspectives and identities. They should be based on historical accuracy, robust academic expertise and critical analysis. Engagement with universities, museums, libraries, PRONAI, etc. is essential to ensuring this evidence base. The interpretation of events should be in a broad historical context and understanding of the national and European setting of the time. The Council should develop strong links with other institutions, i.e. museums, libraries, PRONAI, and other relevant organisations to ensure that there is no duplication and that events and programmes are complementary. We will provide support, a range of different types of events, from lectures, discussions, debates, to films, drama, activities that attract schools and children and families, so that events can not only be educational, but participative, creative, and enjoyable. We will provide and support events and activities that are not exclusive, but are welcoming to all sections of our increasingly diverse community in Belfast. And that these set of principles should be applied corporately to any key anniversaries being marked by the Council. I don't think that we can underestimate the significance of the Council having agreed to these principles. In many ways, they set the tone and the direction for the work of the Council and had full political agreement and buy-in from the political parties in Belfast City Council. So phase one of our programme, back in 1912 to 1914, we titled Shared History, Different Allegiances. In this first phase, events were delivered on the Balmoral Review, the Home Rule Crisis, the Ulster Covenant, the Gaelic Revival, the Suffragette Movement, the Labour Movement, and then for the formations of the YCV, the UVF, and the Irish Volunteers. This image is from the exhibition that we developed as part of this phase of our programme, which encompassed all of the themes from the events that I've just listed. One significant element of it was the iPad that was in place, which allowed anyone to insert the name of a relative and find out whether they had signed the Ulster Covenant in 1912 or the Women's Declaration. And people from all over the country came to see this exhibition. After the success of our first phase, our councillors wanted to explore how to engage on the key phase that was looking at marking 1916. Marking 1916 was always going to be one of the most significant years in the whole decade. However, councillors wanted to continue this spirit of respect, openness and inclusion that had been generated through the work done within the first phase of the decade. In late 2014, in advance of 2016, a cross-party group of councillors visited Dublin to look at how they were planning for their 1916 commemorations. And through that visit, we learned a lot. We visited the GPO, the Garden of Remembrance, Island Bridge War Memorial Gardens, and Glasnevin Cemetery. After that visit, councillors expressed that in addition to the principles, they would also like the 1916 commemorations to be undertaken with the following focus: that events and activities should have a strong Belfast focus, that we should use the events to explore the commonality of loss on all sides, and that all commemorative activity should be respectful. These additional elements were therefore added into our original principles at this point in the decade. So our second phase covered 1915 to 1917 and was titled Belfast Reflections on 1916. Events in this phase were delivered on World War I, the Battle of the Somme, the Easter Rising, the Battle of Jutland, the changing role of women, including life on the home front. A second large-scale exhibition was developed for this phase, which included, again, all of the above themes, and was visited by over 15,000 people. The highlight of the exhibition was the display of the original medals that were awarded to George MacBride and Winifred Carney. These were offered to the exhibition by a man from Ohio who was originally from Drogheda, who had purchased the medals at an auction. His desire was that the story of Winnie, who fought in the Easter Rising and the War of Independence, and George, who fought at the Battle of the Somme, was a remarkable story of their shared desire for workers' rights and justice. It was a cross-community story that was fitting for the exhibition being delivered under the Council's agreed principles. Another story which caught the imagination of so many people was that of Jim Mitchell. He wrote an eyewitness account of the outbreak of the Easter Rising from his hotel room in the Gresham Hotel in O'Connell Street. He had arrived in Dublin to enlist in the army for World War I service, but found himself caught witnessing a rebellion against the army that he was seeking to join. These two stories highlighted the complexity of the history of this period, and was also reflected by our elected representatives who showed a great spirit of civic leadership throughout the decade. And I would like to just highlight two examples. In July 2016, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Mary Ellen Campbell from Sinn Féin, launched the exhibition Fields of Battle, Lands of Peace in the grounds of City Hall. It told the story of the battlefields of World War I from the landscapes of the battlefields as they are today. For the Deputy Mayor, it was important for her to lend her support to this project. After the launch, she spoke about her own grandfather who had fought in the Battle of the Somme. Rifleman Edward Campbell was in the 11th Battalion Royal Irish Rifles. On his return to Belfast, he worked at Hall's Brush Factory until his death on the 27th of August 1940. As a Sinn Féin Deputy Mayor, Councillor Campbell felt that this personal story represented an example of the complexity of our individual and collective histories. She hung a photograph of her grandfather in the Deputy Mayor's office in City Hall for the remainder of her term. And in a speech to the Council's Decade of Centenaries Conference in November 2016, the then Lord Mayor, Alderman Brian Kingston, provided a wide-ranging view of the Council's programme for 2016. Within this review, he specifically acknowledged the significance that the Easter Rising has for nationalists in general, and particularly in Belfast. In addition, he also highlighted the role of women from Belfast in the events in Dublin in 1916. These public words from civic leaders were indicative of the inclusive nature of the Council's commemorations and demonstrated in practice the positive environment that had been created for all the events and activities. The final phase of the programme covered the period 1918 up until now. Areas covered included the end of World War I, post-war Belfast, the Treaty of Versailles, European borders redrawn. We looked at women in politics, the Representation of the People Act, the first woman MP elected to Parliament, and the role of women in the trade union movement. We covered Spanish flu and its impact on Belfast. We explored politics and parliaments, the Irish Convention of 1918, the Anglo-Irish Treaty, and the establishment of 2 parliaments on the island. Recently, we explored the whole area of violence, conflict, militarisation and displacement, the Belfast Troubles, 1920 to 1922, and the formation of the RUC. Last year, with support from the National Lottery Heritage Fund, we were able to create a fantastic programme around the King's Speech and the opening of the new Northern Ireland Parliament at City Hall in June 1921. This year, we have looked at the impact of partition on Ulster nationalists and Southern Unionists. The last 2 years have seen us delivering events during COVID. Many events in this final phase of our programme were held online, which actually increased participation at events. Our Violence, Conflict, Militarisation and Displacement Conference was delivered on an online event in November 2020, and the link is there in the slides if you want to look at this. Our panel discussion on 100 years of Northern Ireland, how has it gone, was watched by people from all over Ireland and beyond in March 2021 and can be viewed here on the YouTube link. For 2021, the National Lottery Heritage Fund supported us to deliver a series of Shared History Fund projects, which included commissioning of the drama King George's Speech. The recording and video of this play can also be viewed on YouTube at this link. Developed an online 1921 artefacts and digital stories trail. Again, this can be found online too. We also did a Lord Mayor's time capsule, and we were able to deliver a conservation of the 2 royal chairs that were used during the inauguration of the Northern Ireland Parliament in 1921 and which sit in the council chamber in City Hall. Here's a selection of some of the images from these projects. The then Lord Mayor, Alderman Frank McCubry, buried a time capsule in May last year. It included items such as a face mask, an iPhone, and a signed Northern Ireland women's football jersey. We were also able to conserve and restore the 2 chairs that sit in the council chamber, which were first used at the inauguration of the Northern Ireland Parliament in City Hall in June 1921. The current Lord Mayor, Councillor Kate Nicholl, hosted a powerful reenactment of the King's Speech from 100 years ago last June. Apart from these public events that we've delivered, we've also supported a number of community projects, particularly in 2016, with the Psalm 100 and the 2016 Committee Community Events Programme. While the decade of centenaries is drawing to a close for many of us, there is much that has been learned over the last 12 years on how to mark or commemorate or celebrate events from our history in a positive way that can bring people together, and we hope that we can adapt this learning for other initiatives in the future. Thank you.